Hi there, my name is Richard Atherton. In this video, I am going to show you how you can use what I call Trust Scaffold to supercharge your business performance. If you're a CEO or a business unit head, I will outline to you how you can elevate leadership across your organisation, leading to breakthrough results. Now, when you hear elevate leadership, you may be thinking of leadership training. And whilst this has its place, it tends to focus only on improving an individual's leadership capability. And as smart as that one person may be, this investment has limited returns across an organisation. And besides, you and many of your colleagues are probably already pretty good leaders. In my experience, the smart leaders tend to be looking at the system as a whole and how they can encourage leadership from every member of the organisation. But there's just one obstacle that prevents them from doing so, that stops a business achieving its objectives despite the strength of its leaders. And this obstacle tends to be ignored or not even considered, and that is the level of trust across your company. And this trust issue or trust deficit can be faced by organisations of any size across any sector. Leaders from the BBC to the Olympics Organising Committee to Adidas have successfully worked with me to apply the philosophy I'm going to outline to address this core challenge. Now, let me give you an example to illustrate my approach with Susan. Susan felt inspired by the purpose and the mission of her organisation, but knew that her division could be operating at a much higher level. When she looked out, she sensed a lack of proactivity and a lack of leadership in her people. It felt like it was her and her top team dragging the whole organisation forward. Susan worked with me to identify where trust was lacking across her organisation and where people were not fully expressing their leadership potential. By unleashing this pent-up potential, business performance soared. To give one example, the active signed-in user base of her division's main digital platform increased 150%, driving a step change improvement in their revenues. So I mentioned this trust scaffold. What is a trust scaffold? Well, it's an approach for increasing trust and elevating leadership across your company, and it has 3 pillars. I call them pillars because without attending to every one of them, the whole approach collapses. And with 20 years of experience in both operational consulting and coaching CEOs and senior leaders, I have found that this approach requires both changes to the operational day-to-day DNA of your organisation, as well as focusing on who you are and what you stand for as a leader. The first pillar of this approach is to let go of what I call your trust blockers. Think of these as like clots in the decision-making arteries of your organisation. It's very common for these clots or blockers to emerge. Perhaps somebody made the wrong call at some point in your company's history and a policy was created that turned out ultimately to be an overreaction to a rare occurrence. It's also true that for many leaders, hierarchical approval chains are simply the only way they know how to manage. When Susan and I worked together, we discovered one such blocker, and it concerned Ben. Working several layers down the organisation, he was the product owner of the digital platform I mentioned. Now, whilst he had a lot of accountability on paper, he couldn't get sign-off for as much as a packet of post-it notes. Susan intervened to increase his approval limit by 150k. This effectively made Ben the CEO of his own mini enterprise. Ben now flourished as a leader, and the performance of his team took off, leading to the revenue uptick that I mentioned. Now, Susan's job was to enroll the other leaders in her top team to search out and let go of the trust blockers in their areas. Okay, so you've uncorked leadership potential across your organisation. This brings us to the second pillar in 2 words: direction and transparency. if your newly trusted leaders are going to be effective in their own right, as well as acting coherently with other leaders across your organisation, then there must be a common sense of direction. They must feel the purpose in their bones. They must know the mission of your organisation. They must have internalised the values and the principles by which your organisation operates. In the case of Susan, we worked together to ensure that her division's goals were extremely well understood by everybody in the organisation, clear and concise with just a single priority for each quarter. This allowed the employee leaders to align their efforts and those of their teams to a single direction and priority. And this transparency worked two ways. Susan expected and encouraged the teams across her department to work out loud, to make public the progress that they were making against their self-set goals that aligned to her priority. Now, whilst this trust scaffolding approach rests on you creating leaders of everyone in your organisation, the third and final pillar comes down to you as the most senior leader and what it is that you're standing for, the space that you're creating into which this new culture will emerge. Susan stood for openness and leadership across her division. She demonstrated it by increasing Ben's approval limit. What are the concrete actions that you will take that will prove to your organisation that you're walking that you'll talk and that will create the path for others to follow? So what will happen if you start acting against each of these three pillars? Well, very rapidly, you will begin to see the quality of the leadership dramatically enhancing across your organisation, leading to a massive step change in business performance. With increased transparency, you'll also feel yourself much closer to the operation of your business. You may also find that you are less bogged down on a day-to-day basis with transactional decisions, and you as a senior leader will have much more space to consider the strategic questions facing your business. If you don't take action, you'll risk your organisation continuing to not fulfil on its potential. You'll continue to experience a lack of leadership and proactivity, and you'll risk continuing to be dragged into low-level decision-making that really shouldn't be coming to you. Now, I'm going to make you an offer. If you feel like your organisation may be suffering from a trust deficit, if you feel like it could benefit from leadership being elevated across all levels, then let's spend some time together and work out what a trust scaffold will look like in your context. Click on the link below and let's have a call.